Content warnings for this episode of Sekiro. Blood and gore, explosions, loud noises, bright flashes, animal cruelty, screaming, body horror, centipedes, and zombies. Also, mushrooms and poop. I forgot to say those originally. This episode is going to be a little bit gross because of what we're fighting. Please be aware. And now, onto the episode. Welcome back to Sekiro. Here again is the really large statue of who I think is Guardian. She is holding a baby here, which I'm pretty sure is typical. And then she's doing a mudra, apparently. It might not be, but I know I've seen a lot of statues of Buddhas and figures in a laying position, but usually that means they're in nirvana. And this is raised and elevated and reclining. Down there is a big ape. The trees also have some sort of large rope around them. I'm not sure if it's stone like a statue or actually giant fiber like rope. This is an area where water is leading to, where all of the water of Ashina seemingly leads to. This area is pretty important, and this is a boss guarding something that we need. Now, to note, Japan does not have any native apes as far as I know. I'm going to focus on the boss fight for now, and I'll get into Chinese folklore and stuff later. But this is the Guardian Ape. Guardian Ape is a boss that can be pretty tough for a lot of people. Deflecting him is pretty hard. You can dodge through his attacks, of course. He's just very large, has a lot of health, and is very aggressive. That attack right there, you typically want to deflect, don't try to run from it. Deflecting is way safer. But a lot of the time you don't want to deflect Guardian Ape. It takes quite a while to posture kill him. Right there, that was a grab, that perilous attack. It would have normally hit me, but it's a sort of sweep apparently. If you've jumped at all, it misses you. You can just jump over it. That attack where he swings upwards then falls over and flails is one of the best baits to get for him. Once he does that, wait until the ending of his flailing. He'll flail like 3 times about, then stop. As he's receding from doing that, you can get a bunch of hits in on his head. When he sits down like that, he's either going to turn around and start slamming, or he's going to fart, unfortunately. Though farting is good, you want him to fart. When he's farting, you can hit him. Then as he's running, you can hit him as he's stopping to poop in his hands. While pooping in his hands, you can hit him once while running, then you can get in another hit as he's jumping, then do a thrust to where he's going, and then hit him once after for safety. You can do more, but that's the safest. I was also showing his grab. The grab has ridiculous hitboxes. You want to sprint away from him and jump. You can alternatively run straight towards him and past him if you're close enough. Then you can get behind him and get in some hits. See here, after the sit, the slam. You can parry almost all of his attacks other than the grab and I think the scream. The fart, of course, is poison, so that'll build up if you stand there. You can parry his poop throw, but there's not much advantage to it. Here you can parry the flail, everything. Guardian Ape is an enemy you're probably going to vitality kill over time. He can just take quite a while for a lot of people, especially if he's the first of the 3 sort of gate bosses you need to get to the end of the game. Having the lower attack damage will make kind of a difference for him. Ichimonji is good for hitting him in vulnerable states. It's hard to find ones that are totally perfect for him. Mortal Draw is maybe the best combat art against him. For prosthetics, firecrackers are good. After the first firecracker, however, he will punish you as he's coming down. He'll raise his arms up, and then he'll slam them down. So just be aware to dodge or deflect that. This is a rare attack he'll do where he'll spin around after sitting down. It can catch you off guard if you were going for the fart punish. Here I was trying to get him to do certain attacks to show them off. I try to show off all of them, getting hit by all of them even. I got grabbed, for instance, when I don't typically. I think I was trying to here get him to throw the poop so that I could deflect it and show that. Guardian Ape has a lot of vulnerable areas, and then there are points where you just don't really need to punish him. Like after this, the one hit right there, you can get it. It's not really worth it if you're doing, like I've done, like no hit, no damage fights. Because it's pretty risky, but you can make the fight go faster. So here I was showing, it kept missing me. It took me a long time to get this recording of him actually hitting me with the poop. And of course after he does it, he does wipe his butt. Don't worry. He is a disgusting but clean boy. And that is Guardian Ape. We use the sword in his neck to cut his head off. What that sword is and who it belongs to is a bit of a mystery. There is someone it could belong to, a certain very large one-armed man. On Guardian Ape's neck right there, I take a little bit of a close look at it. Appears to be a sort of tooth fungus, tooth mushroom. They grow a lot on like trees and wood. It might also just be bone or coral. So this is the headless form of Guardian Ape. This is the second phase. Guardian Ape is immortal. He is undead. He's a zombie. That scream right there does terror. You want to get out of range of it. You can deflect that attack, just to show. When he jumps up, get ready to jump the sweep. This form is kind of weird. He has a lot of irregular movements that are hard to predict at times. Once you know them though, he's incredibly easy because parrying destroys him. Deflect, use the spear on his throat and pull the centipede out of his throat. When you do that, you can hit him once before you use the spear. Also shown here, behind him the scream has shorter range. So if you are behind him or want to dodge, dodging behind him is not a bad idea. What you want to do is deflect him a bunch so that he'll do that overhead slam that I was too close to, so it missed. Now, do be aware that this form of ape can rather suddenly, in the middle of combos and even after being deflected, suddenly pull his head up to his throat and scream into it, and it'll deal damage. This is really annoying for no hit, no damage fights. It sucks. Now, after he does that, if you follow up with a fang and blade attack after the spear, which is attacking immediately after using a prosthetic, it will typically miss. Also right there I was showing the exact range. So what I usually do for this is, after I pull the centipede out with the spear, I run straight towards him and then get in 2 hits. You can get in hits after that, but if he starts screaming, you'll need to retreat right away. That was an actual mistake in the recording. That wasn't me trying to show something off. I just screwed up right there. Charmless, this is harder, of course. You have to deflect everything. You can't block the attacks. And there we go. That is the end of this version of Guardian Ape. We stab the centipede. Now, if you've been paying attention, you may know that was the wrong thing to do. We don't have the option here. His body disappears. And listen. That was Guardian Ape. But, as you may have realized, he's not dead. That is the slender finger. That is the finger of Kingfisher. Kingfisher was a shinobi partner to the sculptor known as Sekiro. Now that we've got the fight out of the way, let's get a little bit more into the story and lore. It's fun to say, isn't it? Also, here is the Remnant. Memories and Remnants do have different descriptions if you read them. So keep that in mind. Usually the Remnant has the full story, and the description of the memory is more of like first impressions. And just to show over here, here are some old-style Japanese buildings. These are based more out of things like old designs of Kyoto and Nijo Palace, which was the home of the shogun and was an imperial seat of power. So that sort of stuff is leading here. That's very important. The thing that Guardian Ape is guarding is the Lotus of the Palace. We will be seeing more of it. It's one of the items required to reach the end of the game. Now, I'm going to put footage of, like, other fights against Guardian Ape, no hit, no damage fights and things, just to keep it going, because it's going to be a bit more podcast-ish at this point for this episode. I just wanted to try and, as people have suggested, be a bit more focused on what I'm going to be talking about, rather than talking about all sorts of different pieces of lore for different things. I wanted to talk about Guardian Ape, and I wanted to talk about monkeys and apes. Now, I'm hoping this won't make too much noise. I'm going to have to be scrolling and actually using my keyboard and mouse a little bit as I'm talking. And hopefully you can't hear any other noises. People are being loud, but there's nothing I can really do about that. So, I've been trying to find information about apes and monkeys. The Guardian Ape, I'm not really sure if he's an ape or not. It's a bit confusing, and at this period, in a lot of text and a lot of historical documents, they didn't always differentiate between an ape and a monkey. In Japan, there are no native apes. But I've been doing searching. There are a lot of different concepts. I was trying to find it online. I believe it's pronounced Baopoze. I don't want to accidentally say a very vulgar word or mispronounce it, which I probably did. But there are a lot of concepts from it. I can only find very sparse bits of it. Wikipedia has a few parts, but Wikipedia isn't like really an academic source per se. The citations on it do cite a lot of essays, but they only have small bits and pieces of it. So this quote right here, macaque or macaque may evolve into an ape after 800 years. After another 500 years, it evolves into a jue, and a jue will evolve into a chenchu after 1,000 years. And it mentions that chenchu is a toad. This is a sort of Taoist principle. And again, I can't find a lot of these sources easily online. I might have to actually go to a library and check to see if I can access anything from there. I have some historical documents and sites and sources I check, but the ones for this stop at about 1971. And this information, as far as I know, from what I'm looking at in the volumes, is from 1941. So I don't have access to it easily. I'll try to do more searching, but I'm going to have to just do bare bones for now. But there is a sort of concept of breathing, and the longer you live, the more you breathe, the longer you'll live. They had some Taoist concepts, I believe, what is it? Dalvin. It's like guide and pull. And I probably should be looking at my notes instead of just going off memory. But they believed that this would help with longevity and even bring immortality. And that controlling your breath would influence this. And I have to mention, sorry, JoJo's fans might know some similarities there, which might be part of where the concept for Haman and it preventing aging or slowing it comes from. But in either case, there is a lot of concepts around animals having really long lives. Now, Jue, or I don't know how to pronounce it exactly, but I believe it's related to Juefu is the full term of a large monkey, ape, like big ape, great ape, big ape beast. It's this sort of creature that the monkey would turn into. They were tall, but only about the size of a human, and may have been orangutans or gibbons. There's a lot of confusion over what things are. Like, Zhang Zhang, I believe is how it's pronounced, would be the orangutan. Now, they had a lot of different concepts around this, and if you look at historical art of orangutan, it does look kind of like something in Sekiro, but I can't get to that yet because of spoilers. But there is a sort of concept of monkeys and apes understanding the past, but not being able to see the future. And I think it's not even simply they have a good memory, it's that they can observe the past while in the present. So they can tell you about things that happened that even you or they have not personally witnessed. And there are versions of it where it is that they're so long-lived, they've seen everything. There were lots of concepts around like monkey and ape blood being used to dye clothing, but as far as I know, I haven't seen the actual like sources showing Chinese people actually doing that. Just people being told that's what Chinese people do. You have a lot of historical terms for monkeys and apes that kind of overlap. They didn't always make a distinction like now, you, how, yuan, now, yuan, wrong, jue, jue, fu, jue. Hopefully I said any of those correct. I'm, again, going off of what I'm reading and text. Now, if I'm trying to remember, there are lots of different Tibetan legends. There are like creatures that are apes of the mountains that are large and dangerous. They are on and off seen as deadly and really harmful to humans, but also really useful, really cunning, having ancient knowledge. In Buddhism, there is a story of I believe it's the past life of a bodhisattva. And this bodhisattva took the form of a giant ape that cared for monkeys and watched over a tree of mangoes, or other fruits possibly. This creature was actually like a benevolent ruler, the total opposite of Guardian Ape. And this can also be seen as like the opposite of the Monkey King, who was very arrogant. Or at least is portrayed typically as arrogant, and Guan Yin is right above Guardian Ape, or at least who I think is her. And Guan Yin is heavily related to the story of the Monkey King. And Ashina is full of mountains. Shugendo is everywhere. Mountains are incredibly important in Ashina and in Sekiro. And the Monkey King was trapped inside of a mountain, and Guardian Ape is found right in front of a cave that leads into a mountain with the Lotus of the Palace. The Lotus of the Palace being something that attracts apes. It smells good to them. Now, I'm going to try to pronounce that the benevolent Monkey King, or monkey ruler name. I believe it was Mahakapi Jataka. And the story of him is that they had a sort of fruit that they did not want drifting down the stream. They wanted to keep it out of the hands of humanity, because as soon as humanity would taste the delicious fruit, they would want it and they would come and they would take it through force. This is kind of a parallel to the water of the palace and the water of Fountainhead and the Dragon Spring, going down all of the waterfalls and leading into the rivers in Ashina in Sekiro. Now, this Monkey King tried to prevent it, tried to prune the branches, keep anything from growing on it. And this is going to be related a lot to the Everblossom in Sekiro and the Sakura tree of the Everblossom. Now, eventually, a fruit fell and carried down the stream, and the person who found it and ate it was a ruler. They loved it. They wanted more of it, commanded their soldiers to go and get it. They saw a bunch of dumb monkeys sitting around the tree and shot at them and tried to kill them. Now, the king, or the ruler of these monkeys, who is the past life of a bodhisattva. I believe it was a bodhisattva, not a full Buddha. They could have escaped by themselves perfectly fine, but they were a good ruler. Rather than let their subjects die, they used a piece of wood and helped the others climb across. They climbed atop the ape, the monkey king, and severely injured him. And he fell, was hurt, and rather than finish him off, the king, the ruler who found the fruit and wanted it from the ape, was perplexed. So he had his soldiers save the ape and try to nurse it back to health. For just a moment, it awoke and he asked, "Why did you do that? You're a ruler. Your subjects are supposed to die for you." And the ape explained how a truly good ruler is willing to do what it takes to protect their subjects, and that is what it actually means to rule, essentially. And then the ape died. Hopefully this is all fine in recording. Now, monkeys and apes are seen as wise and foolish in Buddhism. It depends on the story, and I'm pretty sure that's intentional. It's supposed to show the balance and sort of opposition and how that works together also, and opposites being two parts of the same whole. Warning, incoming mushroom/fungus and close-ups of a centipede. Right here, this is tooth fungus, a form of shelf tooth fungus that grows on trees and things. It kind of looks like what's around his neck. That might be bone or coral. The headless guardian ape was a colossal beast plagued with the power of the undying. And he was plagued, he was cursed with this. I'm going to show a few item descriptions. I'll try to read them as best as I can. At one time, the guardian ape shared its den with a mate, but he alone became infested while the other passed away. Now even the flowers offered in tribute to her passing have withered to dust. Now let's take a look at the Lotus of the Palace. It's in the cave up ahead. A white lotus flower found blooming in the depths of the sunken valley, where the fountainhead waters cooled deeply. The flower's aroma attracts female apes, thus the guardian ape carefully tended to it so as to offer it to his bride. One of the incense ingredients sought by the divine heir for immortal severance. Now this is where it pulls deeply, and that sounds a bit like the description of the sediment of rejuvenation. Now, here's the slender finger of a young woman. Found in the belly of the guardian ape, it is partially digested. There is a shinobi technique called the finger whistle that can drive beasts wild. The one who used it before clearly used it for this purpose, as evidenced by the finger's open hole. The finger whistle. Its sound will grab an enemy's attention and draw them to the location. The sound of the finger whistle enraged beasts, making them unable to distinguish friend from foe. And malcontent. Kingfisher is etched onto this ring. The kingfisher's cry could be heard along the waterfront of the sunken valley. Now she cries no more. Kingfisher, again, was the partner of the sculptor of Sekiro, and this is the sword rammed through Guardian Ape's head and neck. It is very large, would require a large amount of power to just do this. It's very strange in design. Here is an up-close of this centipede that was inside of him. The grip of that sword kind of reminds me of certain weapons from Malaysia and Indonesia. It reminds me of the Kris, but the design of the full weapon is very different, and it has a sort of notch at the top of the blade that separates the tip from the back of the blade. I'm not sure what this would really provide for it, other than just making it look interesting, and even the tip of the weapon could be damaged from this fight. Now, my guess would be this is the sculptor's weapon. We don't ever actually see his weapon. We don't really know how he fights. The axe of the monkey was likely his, as he is orangutan, and it kind of sounds like it was talking about him, but it's not fully explained. Sculptor does talk mournfully about Kingfisher, and it sounds like this is what drove him to start becoming a Shura, which required Ishin to cut off his arm. Now, a lot of this is speculation because it's not explicitly stated. Now we're going to take a look. Here is, I believe, the mate of Guardian Ape. This corpse is near the poison pools above the area. This is monkey booze, alcohol created by dew pulled in a hollow tree. Fruit hidden by monkeys in tree hollows can sometimes ferment and turn into sake with a bit of luck. While it's known for its brutally harsh flavor, some take a liking to it. Here is just a close-up of the side of how messed up his face can look at certain angles. Depending on the angle, he is really grotesque looking. Here is a more sort of front-on photo I've got. I have photos of almost everything. Now, that also does remind me a bit of the story of hiding the fruit from humans, from the story of that other Monkey King. Now, I'm not sure how much these things are just references or influences or even just coincidence. They could just be coincidence. There might be no relation at all. There's just a lot of stories about apes and monkeys in Chinese folklore and history, and in Japanese and in Indian and Tibet. So, the Guardian Ape reminds me a lot of various forms of these stories, and especially of monkeys that turn into apes as they age. So that might be how these apes get so big. It might be what they're eating. They might just be the longest living of them, so they grow large. It could be like the taro persimmon, where there's also the story of the monkey and the crab, and that has to do with the monkey and desiring persimmon fruit. And the taro troopers, who are huge, are raised on persimmon, and it says specifically taro persimmon. But it's not known or explained fully if that's exclusively like what makes them so large, because they seemingly have parents that can be normal humans. So they're seemingly humans, but also the one we see, Kotaro, with his father, he could just be adopted. Or maybe the mother was like a taro, but the father wasn't. So why these apes are so large, why they're here in Japan, it's not fully explained, but those are some things that might relate to it and what's going on with them. I hope I've covered a lot here that might be of interest to people. It's getting a little bit long, and these episodes take a little while to render as it is. I hope the background footage has been entertaining enough while I talk about these things, and I hope this was focused and concise enough. I'm sorry I couldn't have better sources. I just can't find them easily online. I would have to actually get my hands on the books and probably go to the library, which I don't go out too much, as you can probably tell by how much I play this game. But this was a combined LP episode and lore episode. Everything about this form of Guardian Ape. We will be seeing more of him later, but it doesn't add too much to the story of Guardian Ape per se. It'll just be later in the LP. And technically I can do it a bit sooner. I want to enter the next part of the story first, and then I'll likely do it. But I hope everyone enjoyed listening to this. People who study Chinese history, Japanese history, Buddhism, they'll probably know about this sort of stuff, and a lot of them that are like accredited historians will probably be able to tell you way more than I can, of course. These are just details I notice while playing and things I can find and search. So, I hope everyone enjoyed. I'm still looking into where the centipedes come from, but I've figured out most of the things and the references and what they're related to in Sekiro. And I'll be working on videos for those things. I'm currently doing LP. I might do dedicated lore videos though. People have suggested that, so I'm going to give it a try. This is kind of the test run for that, so if you like this, let me know. Alright, Tolvo, signing off.